everyone, I'm Booc and we are Group 10 and our topic is about global demography. From the word global, it is relating to the whole world or worldwide, while demography is the statistical study of population, especially human beings. So global demography is the study of the size, structure, and distribution of population of the spatial or temporal changes in terms of response to the number of birth, migration, aging, and death. So let's proceed for the first topic of global demography, which is the demographic transition. So demographic transition, it is a singular historical period during the mortality and fertility rates, pagkabuhi ug pagkapatay, declines from high-low levels in a particular country or region. So one element that is very relevant for the interpretation of major social, economic, and political forces is the changing pattern of the geodemography of the world. So, ang kinimanggo siyang geodemography, in short, it is the study of people based on where they live. So, the geodemographic system estimates the most probable characteristic of people based on the profile of all living in a small area near a particular address. So, diverging demographic cycle, kining pag-usab-usab sa demographic cycle are taking place in various ways by continents, regions, and countries. So, the transition started in the mid-late 1700 in Europe. So by 1820, the population rapidly increased by 16% and then turns to 19% after 50 years. So one of the continents that is rapidly increased is Africa, which is increased faster than 19th century. So its growth is projected from 9% in 1950 and outstanding 25% by 2050. So, ang demographic transition, nagisgot man sa siyang mortality. Let's take an example of this nCoV, the pandemic virus. A mortality rate perspective of nCoV, the time, location, and age, as of March 29, 2020, as of 2 a.m., the total number recorded deaths from the novel corona stood up to 30,879 deaths. Pandemic COVID-19 virus globally affected the lives of every citizen. Because of this mortality of this pandemic and COVID, so ang pinakataas during our ratings mo ang Italy, which is 9,134 deaths. Then the Spain, which is 5,184 dead. Next is the China, which is 3,229 dead. US 1,581. South Korea, which is 144. United Kingdom 700, and much more. So ang demographic transition nagisgot man tag mortality. So because of this pandemic nCoV, ang US mo ni pinakataas karon. Next is the Italy, UK, the China, and much more countries are affected by the nCoV. Let's proceed to the extension of man. So, this extension of man is under demographic transition. So, will mankind extinct? So, according to the pessimist, they believe that extinction of man might happen soon. And the optimists believe that the end of mankind is inevitable. Dili siya kapugngan but will occur in an indeterminate future. So based on the study, the population disappeared because of natural or man-made catastrophes. It may be by explosion of volcano, tsunami, earthquake, war, religious act, or can be an ethnic group annihilated in a genocide. Meaning, genocide is a killing of people. So, another significant cause of extinction is known as the democratic suicide rather. Kining pagpakamatay, kining mag-ana ba, maghikog, usa sa nis mga significant yun kay siya. So this latter refers to the continuous imbalance between birth and death. Moinlas ni siya nga kawalan sa timbang sa pagitan ng kapahamakan at kapanganakan rather at kamatayan, death. So the mortality evolves because of genetic mutation and drift and social inheritance. Inheritance sa diday ni usahay sa kanang daghang mga puo, daghang mga matay. Through changing interactions between humans, microbes, animal, vectors, and environment. So there are two factors that considered the enormous advance of survival. The first one is the unforeseen modification of the system of pathologies through the emergence of newly diseases as well as the resilience of all disease. So the second one is the factor that is possible economic and sustainability of modern healthcare or public system threatened by rising cost and demographic aging. So kaning number one kay unforeseen kani bitawng mga sistema karon sa kuan nga sa pamagitan ng mga bagong mga new disease ba nga dili bitaw siya nga masama na to siya. So let's proceed to the population rebound and adjustment. It is under also demographic transition. So the precipitous phrases in the demographic cycle are always followed by a rebound or by adjustment of the demographic system. Kini bitang precipitous sudden way of demographic cycle, kalit lang siya ba na ni-follow siya sa rebound o sa pamagitan ng pagsasaayos sa demographic system. So this typically follows an ancient regime type of crisis which is harmful to us like smallpox or cholera, other adverse weather, then parasites, war, epidemic, typhus, and other disease. And some are conception of birth falls. Yung magkalaglag sa bata ba? So, adjustments generally requires time and unlike rebounds, the mechanisms are relatively clear. Adjustments factors are complex and variable. So in many European population, the great flock cycles are foreseen and different centuries brought by many profound the changes of the economy, like lower density, more unavailable, extensive cultivation, high fertility. So the adjustment of demographic system leading to lower rate of growth. So the specific of adjustment are of mutable force and impact. So rebounds would definitely happen in the future as a response to catastrophic events, though with less force than the high pressure system of the past. So let's talk about the fertility issues. It is under also demographic transition. So low fertility below the level of replacement has been rather exceptional in the past. So destruction of fertility factors. So nadi mga destruction ang fertility. So number one is the perceivable separation of couples, kanang mga physical force ba nga sumbag ka gi mo na kang pansibag sa imo, di sa destruction sa dinas fertility. Loss of libido, you already know what is libido, the person's desire to have sex. Na decrease of fecundity because of infection. Ang fecundity man gud siya is unable to produce baby, kanang daghan na kay kag mga infections sa imlawas isa ka produce ana og baby. Sis hunger, hala adik mo paggutom ha kay para maka baby. Ang stress, disad pa stress, usa sa nas mga reason sa destruction of fertility. Next is the high mortality that raised to the bar of replacement ever resulted in a seriously diminished and insufficient reproductive capacity para sa permi ka makuhaan na posibilidad nga dili din adyo ka produce ana og fertility. So, During exceptional periods of distress, fertility has shown remarkable resilience. So dito sa kanang Southern America, ang fertility dito vicinity of 8 children for woman. So taas-taas gitawon siya. So population of the past before the modern demographic transition were certainly endowed with fertility levels that were high, robust, and resilient. So Charles Darwin described the human species, the descent of man, originated in the equatorial Africa, and its method of survival, ways of life, and habitats had to evolve continually in order to make settlements possible in those more extreme corners of the two hemispheres, the south and north. So, man has spread widely over the face of the earth. So, nagkatag-katag na gitag maayo diri sa kalibutan and must have been exposed during incessant migration of the most diversified condition ang pag-migrate nato dito sa mga lain-laing lugar kung asa ta makomportable. So, since the invention of agriculture, most migration flows have developed in a wave-like fashion in territories unpopulated or large open spaces. So the first wave would settle in a convenient area, producing a demographic surplus that generated further waves settling farther on. So there are let's clarify first. Ang immigration gani siya, mao siya ang people moving in to other country. Ang immigration, people moving away from their home or country. So let's take an example. If you were to move to England, you would be immigrating from Canada and immigrating into the other place. So there are two models of migration. So the first one is the ability to move and adapt to a wide range of environments. The ability to adapt was undoubtedly tied to the sum of communal experiences and knowledge and the position of technology and material resources. That greater the migrants' overall resources, the greater their ability to make the most of the new lands. So the second one is the ability to those families and settlements at the front of the way to generate a demographic surplus adequate for the further expansion. So in other words, migrants had a high reproductive fitness and high rate of growth as a group. So both of these features would come to define the ways in which potential migrants were selected. So there are historical evidence that large families with many children and therefore generating their own labor force had a demographic feature required for a successful economy. So mas nindot gid ni daghan no kay na division og labor, so successful ang economy. Dili ra mo mag-labor sa lain, so kamo ra nga family. So traveling in urban and industrial settings, traveling alone or with families and moderating fertility once settled was probably to the advance of the migrant group. Usa din siya mga advance ang travel. So the reproductive advance of the first generation immigrants over the native population was still relevant, particularly when immigrants came from countries with high fertility. That succeeding generation was instead almost zero, since typically there was a rapid convergence of the reproduction patterns of the immigrants and natives. So mobility is not driven mainly by natural factors as are fertility and survival. So the interference of policies and regulations has become very strong, and today it is a maximum level. So that's all, and thank you.
Good morning, classmates, and good morning, sir. I'm Evelyn dela Peña. May tackle my topic about stages of the demographic transition. Model used to represent the movement of high birth and death rates to low births and death rates as a country developed from a pre-industrial to an industrialized economy. First stage is mortality decline. It is primarily early deaths that are eliminated, in particular deaths of children and young adults. Mortality decline started in Northwest Europe. Factors of mortality decline is infectious disease spread by air and water and agent. High-income country na-achieve nila ang potential mortality reductions or nabawasan nila ang makatakod na sakit through smallpox vaccine, personal hygiene, and effective quarantine. Mortality reductions in high-income countries are caused by chronic and degenerative illness like heart disease and cancer. High-income country called because that has a gross national income per capita exceeding $12,056 US dollar. The gross national income is calculated by adding gross domestic product to factor incomes from foreign residents, then subtracting income earned by non-residents. Low-income country began their mortality transition around 24 years, 1920 to 62 years. The Europe, North America, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, the more developed states. The less developed states kay ang Sub-Saharan Africa, Bangladesh, and Cambodia. They are called low-income country because those with per capita $1,025 US dollar per year. Countries, emerging markets, or newly industrialized countries receive development aid, which is financial and given by governments or agencies to boost to support the economic, political, social, and environmental development in other countries. In Sub-Saharan Africa, increasing mortality from HIV/AIDS since 1990, more than 60 million have been affected. Meaning, sa HIV/AIDS kay human immunodeficiency virus acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Life expectancy rate, meaning kay refers to the number of years of a person is expected to live based on the statistical average, the average lifespan expected of the group. The second stage of demographic transition is fertility decline. Means AIDS in both sexes men are fertile continuously, but their sperm quality is affected by their health, frequency of ejaculation, and environmental factors. Women and decline is more rapid, with complete infertility normally occurring around the 50 years. According to Coley and Tridway, the marital fertility declined most of the European states from 1870 to 1930. That couple started to wish to have children. Fertility issues influenced by how economic change impact and benefits of childbearing, meaning kay relating to the process of conceiving, being pregnant, with the giving birth to their children. Then, ang childbearing, meaning kay the process of bringing up a child or children, kung saan pagpadako ang anak o ang bata. Childbearing and rearing are issues because it becomes more productive in technological progress and growing physical and human capital. Particularly vital in childbearing and rearing, it is the result children become more expensive, their economic conditions are decreased. According to Baker and Willis, the parents with higher incomes choose to devote more resources to their child. Raises the cost of each child leads to fewer children in the family. According to Bandika, fertility disclosed in more developed countries defect their baby. bombs and busts up in World War II because fertility rate fell far below. The fertility transition, meaning kay, refers to the elements of the demographic transition of the process by which mortality and fertility have fallen from approximate equilibrium at low levels in most human population over the past 200 years. The fertility transition decline early rapid in East Asia, but slower rapid in South Asia and Latin America. Total fertility rate has fallen below the replacement level, especially among industrialized states, including East Asia, like Taiwan, South Korea, and China. Fertility or total fertility rate or TFR meaning guide indicates the number of children that an average woman would have at the end of her reproductive life, were she to follow the age-specific fertility patterns observed in the given population at given time. Fertility decreased mostly in the youngest and oldest early 2030s and stages of demographic transition population growth, meaning determined by rates of birth, death, immigration, and immigration. Growth population gain in life expectancy changes in fertility and mortality rates of growth. India, higher fertility and mortality kaysa Europe. Statistic or demographic indicates that mortality decline preceded by the fertility decline caused population growth for the less developed countries. In Europe, the fertility rates plunge, meaning the number of the births per woman is less than 2, meaning each couple is replaced by 2 children. The actual population growth rate of Europe is nearly zero, a bit higher than hypothetical steady state growth rate. Hypothetical steady state growth rate meaning is the counterpart of long run all variables such as output, population, capital, stocks, savings, investment, and technical progress either grow at a constant exponential rate or a constant and are caused by changes in the age distribution and immigration patterns. This is the growing global governance nations, meaning kay it is the process of different cultures influencing one another despite the physical distance. According to the UN projections, the global population growth will be close. Global population growth meaning kay the population growth is the increase in the number of individuals is a population. The National Research Council probably that the actual population in 2050 fall between 8.2 and 10.2 billion. So, the National State Council coordinates the activities of various scientists and engineers in universities, industries, and government. This demographic transition gain in a life expectancy with small changes in fertility rate of growth. India, higher initial fertility and mortality than Europe. Statistics indicate that the mortality decline was preceded by the fertility decline caused population growth. In Europe, attains a 1.5% population growth but the fertility rate plunge, meaning kay the number of births per woman is less than 2, means each couple is replaced by 2 children. European growth rate kay nearly zero bit higher than hypothetical steady state growth rates, meaning kay ang counterpart of a long run, all variables such as output, population, capital stocks, savings, investment, and technical progress either grew at constant. It caused by the changes in the age distribution and immigration patterns. Then the National Research Council coordinates the activities of various scientists and engineers in universities, industry, and government. 4th stages of demographic station kay shape and distribution also called as age composition, meaning kay the proportionate numbers of persons in successive age categories in a given population. Systematic innovation, meaning kay the process of methodically analyzing and solving problems with a primary focus on identifying the correct problem to be solved and then generating. It is important part of demographic transition ang kaning systematic innovation. Shift or known as dependency ratio, meaning kay a measure of the number of dependents aged 0 to 14 and over the age of the 65 compared with the population. Mortality starts to decline in the first stages of transition while the fertility rate remains high. The mortality rate declines most at the youngest age, which causes an increase in the proportion of children in the population, and this will raise the child dependency ratios. An industrialized country, a sovereign state that has a developed economy and advanced technological infrastructure relative to other less industrialized nations. That's all, and thank you.
In this video, we will talk about demographic transition. Demographic transition is a model used to represent the movement of high birth and death rates to low birth and death rates as a country develops from a pre-industrial to an industrialized economic system. Demography, one element very relevant for the interpretation of major social, economic, and political forces, is the changing pattern of the geodemography of the world. This is to ignore the impact that a profound variation in the relative weights of human populations has had on the world order. This is significant to depriving oneself of a powerful tool of interpretation. This is from Teitelbaum in 2015. The diverging demographic cycles are taking place in various continents, regions, and countries. Even small differences in the rates of growth, these generate large difference of population if sustained long enough. Generally in Europe, the share of the world population rapidly increased from 16% in 1820 to 19% 50 years later. In Africa, the share of the continent in the world population increased even faster, the potential growth being higher than in 19th century. Demographic impact on economy and society. The transitions of global demography brought about significant changes in the economic and demographic life cycles of human beings, which further restructure the human populations. According to an essay of Thomas Malthus, slow population growth was no accident. It was held in equilibrium with a slowly growing economy. Depressed wages also cause postponement of marriage, resulting in prostitution, vices, and the use of contraception. Flynn and Levy also discussed that in Western Europe, centuries before 1800, marriage required the resources to establish and maintain a separate household. Levy stressed that the total fertility rate (TFR) was moderate overall at 4 to 5 births per woman. Mortality rate then was moderately high, and life expectancy at birth ranges between 25 and 35 years. This scenario and reduced fertility is due to the contraceptive effects of prolonged breastfeeding, which are combined with sex taboos. Also, the practices on abortion and coitus interrupts have important effects. Consequences of the demographic transition. The demographic transition leads to 4 to 10-fold increase in population numbers since the mortality decline precedes the fertility decline. Becker and Willis reported that the number of children born declines and the childbearing capacity becomes focused into a few years of the woman's life. Gruber and Weiss discussed that since 1960s, the generous public pension programs which permit early retirement, there are massive positive fiscal externalities to childbearing. The international migration from the third world countries has increased as the population growth has slowed or even turned negative among the more developed countries.